All right. Well, welcome back to our video Bible study little things here. Um, we're going to be talking a couple times this week about some of the things that came up from our readings on Sunday. And one of them that's maybe especially pertinent to us today, as we're coming up on an election and in a political season, is Romans 13:6. Now, Romans 13 has a lot about obeying authority and so forth. And I made a video about that a while ago that sort of touches on that a little bit. So maybe you can go back and watch that for some context. Romans 13:6 and 7. They're talking about how governments are established. Governments are established for the good of people, to establish justice and preserve life and things like that. And ideally, they're going to do good. They're going to do things that are in accordance with God's will. So continuing from that, we have Romans 13:6 and 7. For because of this, you also pay taxes, for the authorities are ministers of God, attending to this very thing. Pay to all what is owed to them. Taxes to whom taxes are owed, revenue to whom revenue is owed, respect to whom respect is owed, honor to whom honor is owed. Now, okay, the respect and honor thing, that can be pretty difficult to do sometimes, depending on who's in office and what your political beliefs are and whether they follow that. But yeah, we're supposed to respect the office even if the person, we don't necessarily like them. So no matter how the election turns out, there is a respectful and Christian way to dissent and a respectful and a Christian way to talk about the government when you disagree with it. Okay, but that's a subject for a different video. Let's talk about this tax stuff, because you will very often see people with these little bumper sticker kind of things. Taxation is theft. No, it's not. That is not what this says. Okay. Now, there is another verse that's maybe a little bit more famous for talking about this. Let's turn in our Bibles here to Matthew 22. Then the Pharisees went and plotted how to entangle him in his words. And they sent their disciples to him, along with the Herodians, saying, Teacher, we know that you are true and teach the way of God truthfully. And you do not care about anyone's opinion, for you are not swayed by appearances. Then tell us what you think. Is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not? But Jesus, aware of their malice, said, Why put me to the test, you hypocrites? Show me the coin for the tax. And they brought him a denarius. And Jesus said to them, Whose likeness and inscription is this? They said, Caesar's. Then he said to them, Therefore, render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. When they heard it, they marveled, and they left him and went away. Okay, so this is true today. Our monetary system belongs to the government. Your dollar bill, even today, will say U.S. Treasury on it, right? It belongs to the government. You're using it. It's money is sort of like a convenient way to transfer wealth and value, or measure wealth and value, although if you want to get into economics, money and value and money and wealth aren't exactly the same thing. So it's a convenient way to move things around like that, but it doesn't really belong to you. It's the government's thing that the government has in place. And the government charges you a fee to use their money system, right? It's your taxes. Even more than that, going back to what Paul was saying to the Romans, the government has a God-given right under the fourth commandment to take the money it needs to run civil society, to fix the roads and have libraries and police and fire departments and whatever, right? The goods, or the services rather, that we need from the government has a God-given right and duty even to provide. Now, it's a whole separate debate what services or whatever should the government be providing or whatever. I'll leave that to economists and political scientists and whatever. They're the ones who know about that. But if you want to hear about morals and God's law, I'm the one who can tell you about that. I'm a pastor, right? And I can tell you, taxation is not theft. It's a God-given duty of the government to be able to, for the government to perform the duties that God has given to the government to perform. Now, that leaves the question, what happens if the government is using your money for bad things, for things you don't agree with, for things that are outside of God's law? Certainly, the government does that, right? We could maybe think of many examples of government waste, or even the government using tax money for evil. Well, again, we go back to the days of Jesus. What was the government using everybody's tax money for? To enrich the emperor, so that he could throw lavish, ridiculous parties full of sinful excesses, so that he could be wasteful, so that he could indulge his lusts and evil desires more fully. That's what the government was wasting their taxes on. The government was taking tax money from Judea and was spending it on, I don't know, the enslavement and subjugation of the British. Is that right? I mean, that's what was going on in history while Jesus was talking about this. Is places like Britain were being enslaved. Well, the government was taking money from Judea and was enslaving Judea. But Jesus says it's Caesar's coin that you pay the tax with. Pay it to Caesar. So if taxation is theft, I gotta think Jesus would have said something else. It's part of the reality of living in a sinful, fallen world that the government is going to use our money for evil sometimes. I think modern governments probably are a lot less wasteful and self-indulgent than the Roman emperor was. I think we're probably, as much as we might complain sometimes, we're probably doing a lot better than what was going on in the days of Jesus. But it's still true that that sometimes our money is going to be used for things that we don't approve of. But it's also true that God has told us that we owe that duty as citizens, or even subjects. I mean, the people in Roman Judea, by and large, weren't citizens of Rome. They were just a subjugated, enslaved people. Well, not technically enslaved. I don't know, that's all ancient history that maybe we don't need to get into. But the point is, right, taxation is not theft. So if somebody wants to get you to vote for them by saying, rah, 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 taxation is theft, well, no, the government is supposed to tax you and is supposed to use that money for good. Now, then too, there's the question of, but how much money should they be taking, and what can they really do that's good versus what's a wasteful attempt to build a utopia that can never happen? I couldn't tell you. And hey, the U.S. federal government did get by until, I want to say, the Civil War without ever charging income tax. It mostly got by on tariffs and taxes on trade and things, consumption taxes like the whiskey tax. That's not sinful either. That's okay. It's okay if you want to put a society together that way. We have a Christian freedom to do a lot of different things with these basic establishments. So please don't hear me as saying that small government is necessarily evil, or that big government is necessarily evil. It's up to us to find what works best and what's the best stewardship of God's resources. And again, you should ask economists and political scientists and stuff about that. That's not my field of expertise. But what I can tell you is the extreme position that there should never be any taxes and that it's theft specifically that isn't really what the Bible's telling us. So I'm going to make some more of these videos and sort of look at some more of these threads throughout the readings, because there is a lot here to deal with. But that's our little tidbit for tonight. Hope to see you later. Hope you enjoyed your Labor Day. Hope you got some rest. And I'll see you later. Bye.